And welcome into the Roundball Report. I'm Monica McNutt, and joining me is my co-host, Janee Hayes. Andrew Dyer is out today. Janee, so the ladies are taking over.
Hey. Well, I'm excited to be here, Monica, once again to discuss women's NCAA, men's NCAA, and maybe sprinkle a little bit of NBA in there. But to start off our discussion, we are welcomed by Coach Jimmy Fly Hellmann of Dundalk Community College and Mr. Kent Boone of the Glide Hoyas blog. And gentlemen, I know that you guys have watched the excitement, been a part of the excitement, and we want to hear your perspectives. But one, Kent, I heard that you are Georgetown's #1 fan, so essentially you might have a level of disappointment right now.
Oh God.
Well, not too much at the time. At the time that it happened, yeah. But I kind of keep everything in perspective, and we was disappointed, in the end. But when you look back at the whole season, it was a great season. Overcame expectations. People saying the team was young and inexperienced, and they proved everybody wrong once again. We just didn't make it to that next stop, in March Madness, but we'll get there. The best is yet to come, I think.
Love that.
And
that's
how we got to look at it and go back to the drawing board, make better decisions, and probably run a little bit more and stuff like that. But just mainly be ready and alert.
Outstanding. Love that. Well, I got to commend you on keeping it together because you missed our green room discussion. That was pretty spirited when it came to Georgetown. But like you said, we're going to move right along. Georgetown, unfortunately, falling. Mount Hoya Blue Blood hurt too as well, Kent. But we have a great NCAA tournament. We've got 4 teams in the Final Four. Syracuse, Michigan. I'm about to blank on the other 2 teams in the Final Four. Syracuse, Michigan, Louisville, Wichita State, which is probably the true Cinderella. What has been the most exciting part of the tournament thus far for you guys?
I'd have to say Florida Gulf Coast.
You would go back to that, right?
I don't want to say anything about the Georgetown fan, but just having that upset early and a team coming out of nowhere, I'm a little guy. I always root for the underdogs.
Well, with a team like Florida Gulf Coast, obviously people probably didn't have enough time to recruit and watch film on them. What does it do now that they are on the map? Does it help for the recruiting next season? Or are they going to be an institution that, for lack of a better word, is one and done, meaning they make one appearance in the tournament and then you don't hear about them anymore? Like maybe a Weber State when they upset Carolina with Harold Arsenault. We didn't hear any more about them till this year with Damian Lillard. And that's because he's in the NBA.
The problem Florida Gulf Coast is going to have is you have a head coach that just got on the map. He has a model wife with 3 or 4 kids that I'm sure CBS wanted on TV a little bit longer. But I read reports where he may be looking at USC, and that's the problem. When a coach makes a play like that in a tournament, these other schools come looking for him, and if he moves on, then maybe that fire that he had built there, might dim out a little bit.
Well, I know, Kent, we were talking in the green room, and you said this team was not a 15 seed. And you and I had the argument, do you want the selection committee to go by roster, player by player, when they make those decisions? What did you think about that team?
Well, after the game, I had to use all my energy, of being disappointed or whatever, this and that. And even on my way home, I didn't drive home. I rode with somebody. I just did a lot of research. I went on their roster, and I read all their bios and biographies. Found out that most of those kids were state champions of their teams in different states, and maybe a couple players from this area. I think one that Georgetown tried to recruit, maybe 1 or 2 other kids, one from Baltimore. So and I was like, man, whoever was their recruiter did a heck of a job recruiting because they went and got pieces to the puzzle, and then they had one of the top point guards to me in the tournament, Brett Comer. He played alongside at Winter Park High School in Florida alongside of Doc Rivers, son Austin Rivers. And they said, why didn't we hear about him? Well, Austin had the ball most of the time, But as far as coach, FGCU being one and done, as long as Andy Enfield stays there, they'll be back. They'll definitely be back. But as far as USC, I think Mike Brown has that job now. the old Cavaliers coach, and
I hadn't heard that.
I saw that this
breaking
morning
news.
on Twitter. It might be April. You know what? It's probably April Fool's thing. But I forgot the day is April Fool's. So somebody probably tried it, and then somebody put LeBron up there with a bunch of hair. and it was like
I saw that as well.
But anyway, yeah, as long as a coach stays there and the infield stays there, they're going to always be successful because of his philosophy. But he's got to get past that just running all the time because, he's got to get some kind, because the half-court offense is just like nothing.
Right.
Michigan exploited them. I guess, they have, because I was like, once they got in the half court, no, that was Florida.
Florida.
Yeah, once Florida settled down, got them in the half court and everything, it was just like, I was like, man, FGC, you don't have a half court offense. They didn't know what to do. They just slowed them down and just took them off from there.
Right. Well, you mentioned one of the teams that are still currently in play. I mean, I think we all love that FBGCU story.
Right.
But honestly, the true Cinderella is probably Wichita State, the team that is the least known, the true mid-major out of the 4 powerhouses that remain. What do we think? I mean, Wichita State did some major damage getting Gonzaga and for taking down the 1 seed and then continuing on to the Final Four. Do you think they have a shot against Louisville?
Well, they have a shot because they're playing.
Right.
If you're not playing, you have no shot. So they have a week to prepare against this Louisville just tenacious full court pressure. And that's where you have to start when you're looking at Louisville, being able to get the ball out of the back court and into the front court. And I think one of the keys to that is you don't want to you're going to turn the ball over against that pressure. You just don't want 20 of them. If you can keep it reasonable, like 10, 12 for the course of the game, then you're going to be in good shape. And the kind of turnovers, you both played college basketball, so when the coach tells you a kind of turnover, if you run the shot clock down to 35 seconds and you take a shot clock violation, that's a turnover, but now you force Louisville to take the ball out of bounds and play against your set defense. When they steal the ball up in front, Silva and Smith, now they're in the open floor and they're gonna just torch you, especially Russ Smith. So you gotta defeat that pressure and then get into your offense. One thing I would say to beat Louisville is the point guard, Silva, he has a tendency to pick up some questionable fouls early in games. The game that they played, the closest game they had in the tournament was against Oregon, where they only won by 8 points. He sat out almost 15 minutes of that first half. Now you're down a player because of the tragic injury to the young man that broke his shin. So now you're down a substitute. If a senior leader like that spends a lot of time on the bench and now you only have the one guard out there, you can exploit them a little bit.
Right.
Now, Coach, obviously my Blue Devils went down to Louisville yesterday, and I was quite disappointed. But a couple of things that I noticed is that, now Coach K lives and dies by his man-to-man, and they picked us apart. But what I wasn't convinced when I watched Louisville is that they have a slew of shooters. They have scorers. They have people that can penetrate and dish to the open people, to people diving. They have a slew of athletes. But I did not see a consistent shooter, whereas if a team has a decent, well, maybe more than decent zone, you force them to become jump shooters, and then it totally changes the complexion of the ball game.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. I think in Wichita State, when I listen to their coach talk, after games, he's a man-to-man coach. And some of these coaches are inflexible in their approach. If they're man-to-man, they're going to stick with what brought them there. But I'm an old-school coach, so I throw the kitchen sink at you. Because Brittany Grimer in the women's game, they put a box of 1 on her, and that helped Louisville's women's team upset them. And I think you have to mix up some defenses against them because what you just said, if you watch that Duke game, Silva and Smith, they run high screening rolls, but their screening rolls, when you watch it, they're well beyond the three-point NBA line. They're almost out at the half-court line. When you go out there, and if you watch the guards, the big man didn't force them east and west. They always split the trap.
Right.
And once they split that trap, they're so far away from the basket that the two defenders cannot converge. And now once they're down below the free throw line, they got a 3-on-2 advantage. They run a layup drill against Duke in the second half. And what happens is Smith and Silva, even if they don't score, they get the ball up on the rim, and then you got the 6'11" center,
Jang.
and
Yes.
Bohannon, who's 6'6", 250. They are tremendous weak side rebounders, and then they just, clean up the glass on the other side. So you're exactly right with that point.
Well, we've talked about that matchup to great length. Now let's jump to the other side of the bracket. You got Syracuse, signature zone. You mentioned zone. You got Michigan, Kent, your boy Trey Burke, the point guard that you're saying can get into that zone and do some damage. What do you see happening in that matchup?
I did a lot of research on that 2-3 zone, with Georgetown playing them, 3 times this year. Went down there in the dome, 35,000, shut it down. Came back home, regular season Big East championship on the line. 60-39, we blew them out. Big East tournament, we lost to them by like 2 or 3 or whatever. And but anyway, as far as the 2-3 zone, to me, I mean, I guess from hearing, from different coaches how hard it is to break because of the, the length, especially with Carter Williams at the top, whatever, this and that. But to me, it's just about being tough and getting up in there and breaking it down. Because when you look at the player, it's just a certain player that needs to get in there, to get inside that paint and to break it down. And like Coach Fly Williams talked about that second pass and stuff like that, of somebody getting somebody open or whatever this and that. But with Trey Burke, he's going to get in there. He's going to find a way. Great players find a way. I'm a Michael Jordan old school era and this and that. Mm-hmm. It's like great players will find a way. And I believe Trey Burke is that player that will find a way to beat Syracuse. Not himself, of course, because the team, he's a team player. But he's not scared to go up and he's skilled.
And Michigan's not only Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway's son, Tim Hardaway Jr. actually hasn't had a great game in the tournament, so he has to get loose at some point in time.
All right, well, I'm going to call a proverbial timeout. We've got to go to a commercial, but of course we'll continue our discussion of the Final Four on the men's side. We got to hit on the major upset on the women's side, and we'll throw in some NBA on the other side of the break, so stay with us.